if you imagine the subconscious mind is almost like the garbage bin of the psyche. And so in just like your computer has a trash, and then if you don't empty it from time to time, the computer will slow down. It's not that different, I don't think, than that. And so meditation practice is emptying that subconscious pressure, 4-cycle pressure, thought, feeling, emotion, desire, action. Everybody has to deal with that pressure every moment of every day at some level. And that's why it feels so good to enter into a meditative state, because all of a sudden that pressure has somehow been alleviated. The yogis have this brilliant way of understanding the mind, because it's not, the mind is considered in its natural state is clear awareness. The mind in its natural state is not obsessing over, whatever it happens to be obsessing over in the current moment, or kind of gripped by. We tend to obsess about what's coming to the future and what's coming in the future, and we tend to be more gripped by what's happened in the past, right? Because so then even that we can only think of it as just our mental patterns and our emotional patterns and our feeling patterns, our thought patterns. Because in every kind of moment of time, that's why the yogis say that in every moment the mind releases 1,000 thoughts, or the psyche releases 1,000 kind of micro vibrations. They call it antara, and each one of them has a sound, mantara. And so a mantra is a wave of the mind. Mun is mind, and tarang is like a wave. So mantra is kind of tuning the mind energy so that you can operate at the wavelength that you wish of whatever you, because we all have kind of like the part of ourselves we know deep down, and we want to express that. We want our real who we really are, when we really feel ourselves, and we can really feel our inner being, and we can feel our creativity, we can feel our confidence, we can feel how beautiful we are, we can feel how intelligent we are. That's all of us. And as little children, we all knew that. But then over time, of course, these, what we call a deeper pattern set in. And I think a lot of them also we come in with. They don't necessarily, we can't blame everything on our parents. You can only blame some things on our parents. But they could blame some shit on us too. I think so. I think that's also true. My parents definitely could blame some stuff on me. That's disruptive. So I will, there's debt flowing in all directions, is what I think. That you're such a little baby that somebody has to keep you alive. You can't even make it to be an adult unless somebody kept you alive for a certain period of time. There's a debt right there. So, no one lives here rent-free. And so anyhow, our patterns come from who knows where. If you listen to the yogis, they talk about lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes, and those are some skuttas, or the karmas that we have. That they're patterns, they're magnetic patterns. And I find it's helpful to kind of think about the human organism in its magnetic context. Like you have one pole at the base of the spine and another pole at the crown of the head, which we say that it's crown chakra, the 1,000-petaled lotus, 1,000 vibrations in every moment. The power of this kind of like supercomputer that we don't fully understand at all. We're not even close to it, I don't think. And so in every moment there's this kind of powerful energy from the nucleus of a being, and that creates a sound, which then creates a form, which then creates a wave, and so we experience those as a thought. But they say that in every moment in time there's 1,000 of these that are released, and maybe you'll pick up on one of them, a thought. The rest of them are going into what we call the subconscious mind. You with me? It's a simple model of thinking about it, as in a way that then you can work with and shape your mind if you kind of understand a good model for its architecture. And there's lots of different models, and most of them are pretty similar to each other, but they're all a little different. That's why you have Kabbalah, and then you have Vedanta, and then you have the model that comes from the ancient traditions of South America and North America, and et cetera, et cetera. There's models all over the place. All you really need is a good model that has some depth of experience underneath it and some simplicity to it so that you can put it into action and not have to rely on any belief system because it's experiential. It's experiential is its essence. So anyways, in every moment you have 1,000 vibrations, 1,000 thoughts, and then I might catch one of them if it has enough energy. If it has enough energy, then maybe I'll catch it. That thought, if it has enough energy, can turn into a feeling. So what started just like as vibrations now become a feeling. If it has enough energy, enough momentum, then it can become an emotion. Otherwise, that feeling will go into the subconscious. So a thought can become a feeling, or the thought into the subconscious. Then the feeling, if it can become an emotion, or the feeling goes into the subconscious. An emotion can become a desire if it has enough energy, or that emotion goes into the subconscious. And then a desire, of course, can become our actions, our activity. Or the desire goes into the subconscious. And whatever the actions are is what kind of determines the momentum of our life. So by working with this is just called really like the wheel of karma, the wheel of thought to action. Thought, feeling, emotion, desire, action. So this is basically what yogis work with when doing yogic practices. Because if, for instance, I'm repeating a mantra over and over and over and over again, it's kind of, there's 2 points where you can really influence the thing. So influence the momentum, influence how your kind of perception of reality is being influenced and colored. You see, if I'm depressed, my perspective of reality is maybe reinforcing that depression. If that depression's really sticky and hanging around and keeps coming back and back and back. So even though the outer circumstances are changing, the depression keeps coming back and keeps remaining. So then it might be helpful to maybe shape my perspective a little differently. And that's empowering, because it's saying that actually I have the power to be happiness if I can really get myself to choose to do so. So it takes a little bit of Shakti. If I'm not able to choose generosity when I know I really want to, but there's this other pattern that keeps overpowering it. There's a lot of those things, aren't there? It's not that we ever want to be like mean to our significant others, but sometimes we are, aren't we? It's not what we wanted, but that's that there's patterning. So the hard work of yogic discovery, yogic practice, is noticing the patterning and then endeavoring to change it. That's the hard part. The fruits of that is more and more happiness, more and more joy in your life, more and more creativity, lightness of being, feeling good, confident in ourselves. So it's both. We put in some work and it delivers some fruits. But it can't act like there's not work. And then I think, and then there comes even the tendency, say like in the Kundalini Yoga, like tonight we'll do this really beautiful practice, this Kriya that I really love. And I don't teach it so often, but I really wanted to, it was coming to me to do tonight. It's a little bit of work, you'll see. But anybody can do it. And you just do your best. It's no big deal. It delivers some fruits. But still then even a tendency in whatever practice that we have, that sometimes you can give away the power to the practice. And you say Kundalini Yoga is doing it. Or the such and such is doing it. And yeah, these things totally help. And they do a lot just doing them. But to really shape one's reality into a genuine happiness will never happen by just doing kriyas alone. I don't think, even if you were the most consistent person with the most perfect sadhana, without that shaping, that's what I think is really Dharma practice is all about, is the shaping you do in the inner sanctuary of your own mind and heart. Because each one of us already knows how much integrity we have and how much we're living into that integrity. All of us. And this is not a judgmental thing whatsoever. It's hard. All of us, I think, do our best, and yet sometimes it's so difficult. And so, once again, you can't go too far down this philosophical road until you realize compassion has to be there every step of the way. Love has to be there every step of the way. Otherwise, this thing's too bitter and it gets too dried up. So the sweetness of compassion, to where then you can realize if I can sit in compassion, starting with myself and my own crazy predicament. And then I think about like what I put my parents through, you know. And then I think, well, they put me through some shit too. But then that's like, where's the compassion, you know? So when I have compassion for myself, then I just naturally have compassion for them. And we realize we're actually family. And then we can realize that with one another, it can extend so much beyond our bloodlines and you know, tendencies toward tribalism, where there are boundaries where family can extend to and family cannot extend to. So a lot of the times it's taking down those types of boundaries, just little baby steps, but actively. Like the Buddha says, like, samsara will never get rid of itself. You have to be an active participant in it. So that's what we mean by shaping things, or beaming, or imprinting the subconscious. Because you see, that's what they called in Kundalini Yoga 4-cycle pressure of thought, feeling, emotion, desire. That's the wheel of the psyche. What I said, the wheel of karma. You can just call it the wheel of the psyche. Be simple to understand it. Karma is so complicated. It's just kind of, it gets to the point where, okay, it's just mysterious, but it's important. And it's something that's too hard to understand. The entire science and art of Vedic astrology is an attempt to understand a little bit about karma and how it works in the world. So anyways, when you have that 4-cycle pressure in the wheel of the psyche, you have the release, thought, feeling, emotion, desire, action. Then you can work with it, because what ends up happening is, if you imagine the subconscious mind is almost like the garbage bin of the psyche, and so in just like your computer has a trash, and then if you don't empty it from time to time, the computer will slow down. It's not that different, I don't think, than that. And so meditation practice is emptying that subconscious pressure, 4-cycle pressure, thought, feeling, emotion, desire, action. Everybody has to deal with that pressure every moment of every day at some level. And that's why it feels so good to enter into a meditative state, because all of a sudden that pressure has somehow been alleviated. This is happening at a quite subtle level, isn't it? But it's very real and practical, and it weighs on us. Because the body and the mind are not two separate things. The body is in a certain way the vehicle for the mind. The mind's not just up here. That's the brain. The mind is the whole thing. And so that's why if you have your blood sugar drops and the whole world is falling apart, sometimes all you need to do is just eat lunch, and then the world's no longer falling apart anymore. So the blood is the mind, the muscles are the mind, the skin is the psyche, everything is the psyche. Your eyeballs, every bit of hair, you know, our presence, our feeling of ourselves. It's this one kind of vibrating organism, isn't it? This is really the great insight of Ayurveda, is the whole body is the mind. And so if that subconscious if the subconscious part of the psyche isn't cleaned out on a regular basis, you're not purifying the person. The person is glorious. The person is infinite. The person, what animates the person. But the mind is what causes the challenges, because the mind is the expression of, the patterns of the mind are the expression of our karmas. And in order to experience Dharma, you have to go through that karmic gate. It all becomes medicine. It all becomes, so even the difficult things, and you finally discover these inner patterns that are difficult to wrestle with. The depression even becomes medicine. And what is it teaching us? It's hard work to do. And in order to do it, though, somehow it's the only way I know how to do it is I have to consistently bring myself into a meditative space in my life on a regular basis to make sure I'm keeping everything in relatively healthy perspective. Simple. There's lots of ways we can do that. Sometimes we go out and dance, and then we gain, and we have a great night, and we gain perspective. So it's not about just like, oh, it's this one thing that does it. All sorts of things can help us do that. The question is, am I taking care of my chi? Am I taking care of my prana, my energy? And then what does that even mean? And that becomes a cool discovery, because that will take you all the way to the rest of your life. And the last breath will still be kind of experiencing the depths of what that is. Don't you think? So this is good stuff. It is called building a solid foundation for happiness. That's what shaping the mind really is. And that's why understanding this 4-cycle pressure, thought, feeling, emotion, desire. What I really call it, I like to simplify it, I just call it working with the frequency of desire. Because desire is going to happen. And what I'm desiring it for my life is going to be very much influencing what happens in my life. So can I really investigate my desires and where they're coming from, and can maybe I shape them a little bit? Can I discover the desires that I can definitely confirm are causing me suffering, and are causing me a little more misery? Even if they feel good, a little bit on the surface, you know that desire is causing some misery. Sometimes even the misery feels good. Doesn't it? And so that's just the mind, and it's working with it. And as soon as you get like too tight with it, too uptight, too disciplinarian, the whole thing goes out the window. And sometimes that's going to happen. So then you got to soften up. And you got to figure out what Venus is like and how to work with the mind. This is why I love astrology so much, because it gives you all the moods that you can work through. You can work through the Saturnian mood. Get yourself some commitment. Truly, get a little bit of a backbone. Sometimes that's that medicine we need. In different contexts of our life will demand different things, won't they? Sometimes you don't have a choice. You will hear it loud and clear. You better get a backbone. That's what Saturn is. Saturn never gives you really a choice. Jupiter is going to give you a totally different mood. Jupiter is that everything is being given to you already. It is. And everything you see and everywhere you walk around, everything is a manifestation of prosperity. And the great giver keeps giving. And here, that's how Guru Nanak says it. Great giver keeps giving. But he kind of ridicules us. And I think he's including himself. I know he is, because he's always saying, I'm this little thing. I don't know nothing about any of this. It's so beyond the beyond. How could we even speak of it? And then he keeps speaking of it. But then he keeps saying that over and over. Even when you try to write it down, you just regret your attempts. So, but he says that we're down here, we're in ourselves, we're saying, give me, give me, give me. And the great giver just keeps giving. And we don't even see it. So there's another mood. You can take the Mars mood where now you've got a gear shift in your right hand. And you can go down to 2 and then up to 3 and then into high gear. If you have ambition, you're going to get something done. You're going to be able to penetrate into your life. But then you can take the mood of more of like Chandra, of the moon. And you can just chill. And you can be soft and you can be watery and you can not care about thinking, and you really is now feeling becomes supreme. To feel the motherliness of all of life, like what you feel when you look out into the ocean. That's a nice mood, don't you think? And it keeps going. And then you can get better. You can go, well, how about Moon and Taurus? And then you can see then that actually, if you look at the sky, like that's what's happening. I don't know exactly what's happening tonight, but Moon is in Taurus, yeah. And so you can kind of feel what that feels like. So this is what I mean by shaping, because when you have a language for this stuff and you have some system around it, it gives us some kind of ways to access our power. Because Moon and Taurus can be stubborn and sluggish. But Moon and Taurus can be like Earth Mama Goddess, like flowing with prosperity, dancing under the moonlight, create like total creativity, sensual. So then I don't have to be dominated as much, even though my tendency may have me sluggish. My tendency may have me this. My tendency may have me that. With a little bit of work over time, you can gather the Shakti to have the opportunity, at least, to shape things. To have the opportunity to shape your reality into greater joy and happiness and prosperity, and it's inner work. And the Kriyas give you this tremendous access to that, but you still have to do it. The Kriyas, my experience is that they'll get the prana moving, and so they'll open up the chakras in a very visceral way, to where you can really feel your energy. Wonderful. So then once you're in that meditative space, you have this nice kind of opportunity to where I think you can really access some really important entry points to your life. Because all of life is communication. Communication of our heart into the heart of our life. Communication of our minds to the minds of others. Communications with our own inner voice, with us, our inner narratives. And so when we start to become more and more, when that pranas, these kriyas moving the pranas, that's why they call it yoga of awareness, because definitely the field of awareness expands. And then through that expanded feeling of awareness, you can have two things. You can have like amazing, whoa, and you can have like, both of those things. The is like, now I'm kind of shined a light on a little bit of a messy thing that I wasn't able to really notice much or pay attention to or identify clearly previously. But at the same time, it put this light on actually how amazing I am and how amazing things are. But then there's this other juxtaposition to that where it's like, I'm not great at all. All of this is on both sides of that coin, it's just the mind. Neither one of those things are supremely true. What we are, I think, is beyond ideas of amazing and horrible. And there's something that's transcendent of polarities altogether. That's why we have to go into the meditative zone. Then that's what you can't write down and tell about. But I think what's worth writing down, what's worth sometimes saying, are the things that kind of point us in that direction, the things that inspire us into the natural pathway of our life, the natural blossoming of our life. So then when we work with this, your thought, feeling, emotion, desire, now that you become more, there's a consistent practice there, it's not as muddy in the mind anymore because you've been kind of keeping that subconscious nice and clear, relatively so. Is it making sense? And then once it's relatively clear, that's when you can start to shape things because it's not as heavy down there. It's not as frantic. So that's cool stuff, isn't it? But it's a little bit of hard work to do. But what comes out, like we're just talking about, like with having a baby, it's like you can't even, that's what you can't write down with your pen, how hard work that is raising a little baby. Isn't it? I don't know, maybe I thought we had a pretty relatively easy baby. And I think so, and young child who's 17 now. But that shit was hard. It changes everything about life. But what comes out of it, you can't even repay that. There's not a word called hard that even exists in that same universe. You see? So what we come out of is something transcendent. And so by getting into the meditative zone, by concentrating the prana, which these kriyas are so helpful in doing, to when then you can have this, connect back into that part of myself that is beyond all of these dramas. But these dramas are also important. It's not shunning life. It's getting into our energy so that we can bring our energy to life and experience these karmas as not something bad, but that's something that's actually opening us to a greater happiness, a greater joy. But sometimes it's hard fucking work. and sometimes it's smooth like a river. It's all of it in between. So it's a dance of life, but when that meditative energy is there, and you don't have that heavy weight of the subconscious that's then overpowering all the better intentions that we have, when some of those older, deeper, sticky patterns start to let loose a little bit, such a relief. You feel so good, and you like people more too, I find. You do, because you can feel the more that density is purified, the more our subtlety is available. And so we can operate through life in a more subtle way, and then you can feel the connectivity. That's why I think people end up like eating more plants and like being kinder in their environment, because you can intuitively feel your connectivity to everything when you're in touch with your sensitivity and your subtlety. Yeah, you can hug a tree, and it'll feel really good. It will. And you can do all that type of stuff. You can have your feet in the dirt and you're like, it is, because the subtlety gives pleasure. Making love goes so much deeper because there's subtlety there. Hanging out with your children, so much deeper because there's subtlety there. And I don't mean deeper as in that so profound, just rich. The richness of life increases in everybody, even when it's suffering. And even when life brings us to our knees with tears, that's so much more rich as well, because you have that visceral experience of it opening you into a deeper love. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Best easy way to stay in touch with us. Hit the subscribe button here. You'll see our videos when they come up. If you enjoyed this one, hit the like button. It'll help more people see it, help the channel grow. I appreciate you watching.